Survival and everyday resilience begins with A, B, C. Let's discuss becoming self-reliant and living in rhythm with our basic human needs. Let's talk about reclaiming our attention, and then I'll share a few practical techniques that we can apply to our smartphones that we can have a better relationship with them so that they can once again just become useful tools and not objects of addiction. So, stay tuned. Hi folks, welcome to another pondering video. So I'm filming this mid-September, once again right after our first ever Resilient Roots gathering here in the woodland. I've just had so much inspiration after such a lovely weekend. I just figured I'd film a few ponderings while it's still in my head. So we're here in the main camp, the main base camp, main classroom. Just been, spending the day tidying up, drying tents, drying tarps and things like that. Hence why you see stuff in the background. And we still have the Tree of Needs learning map up on the flippy chart, which I was using as a learning prompt. If you want to find out more about this learning map, then I did a previous pondering about it. I'll link it up here if you want to watch that to get some context. So as I mentioned in the previous pondering about authenticity, I shared a wee bit about this gathering, first ever Resilient Roots gathering. And yeah, it was essentially a mix between a wilderness skills camp and a retreat. And we were essentially living for 4 days in the rhythm and the philosophy of Resilient Roots. This is all about becoming self-reliant in our basic needs, starting with the mythology of the individual alone in the wild. And that's sort of the skills that that individual would need to survive the wild, and using that as the foundation to build everything else in life, right? Using that as the place, as the training ground that you can then take back to your everyday life, wherever you may live. Now, a major theme for Resilient Roots Survival School is learning how we can reclaim our attention from technology, as this, I think, is one of the biggest challenges the human race is facing right now. And this is why the first root tip in our Tree of Needs map is ABC. What does that stand for? Well, it's a combination of a few things inspired from basic first aid. In basic first aid, it's airways, breathing, circulation. But for my Tree of Needs map, it stands for attention, breathing, and circulation. Now, because reclaiming our attention is a major part of the course, when I was designing this first ever gathering, I knew a major part was to create a space where people could get away from their smartphones. So when people arrived, I invited them. None of this is forced, right? Everyone would say, right, give me your smartphones, and just like lock them up. People can't get to them. But I invited them to create a barrier from habitual checking of their phone, right? Which we're all guilty of. I know, so I certainly am, especially feeling a bit lonely, or you got some time to kill, your hand, where we all have this conditioned response. Check your phone, right? What's happened? What messages are there? Whatever, what notifications? We all have this habitual response. So I wanted to create a really wholesome space of learning and to reclaim our attention. I wanted to encourage people to create a barrier. And the barrier was simple. When people arrived, I told people to warn their loved ones, either tell them like, look, I'm not going to be in contact with you for a few days, or I'm only going to be in contact once a day. But I encouraged people at the start to put their phones in this ammo box, right, which was a shed a distance away from the main camp. Right, this ammo box makes a loud noise. When you open it, it's kind of hard to open. It takes a bit of an effort to open and close it. It makes a big noise. It's like the noise of shame when people wanted to check their phone. And that's just enough of a barrier where people who are in the woods together for a while, it's just an agreement of like, look, We know we're all addicted to these things. We don't actually need them while we're here. So I encourage you to put them in the box. Now, of course, people have commitments, people have loved ones and family. So at 5 o'clock every day, you could go check your phone and send a message to your family if needed. But a lot of people just put their phones away in the ammo box and didn't look at them for the whole 4 days. And when we did the debrief on the final day, I would say the majority of people said that was one of the highlights. You know, they enjoyed the learning wilderness survival skills, you know, camp cooking, all that stuff. But some of the highlights was just like, man, it was so good, like not looking at my phone. And I realized like some people, that was the first time, that was the longest they'd ever been without their phone. And that was some of the highlights. And then on the last day, as people were about to leave, I did share some techniques, which I do when I'm kind of coming back to technology after being a while out in the wild. But that was, I think, one of the most important things, was just simply creating a small barrier, right? The box wasn't even locked. People could go get their phone whenever they wanted, but at least it was away. It wasn't in their pockets, and it was in a box that was hard to open and loud to open. So that was the kind of the setting the foundation, setting the environment to encourage reclaiming our attention. Now, the second module, Resilient Roots, is called Root Security, and it's all about flow, turning our fight or flight response into flow. If you want to see my philosophy of flow, I did a video on the Fandabidozi channel, The Way of the Staff and Bow to Find the Flow. So that's exploring the experience of flow through staff martial arts and archery. And yeah, so you can watch that video to find out a bit. But the 3 principles of flow are detachment, discipline, and play. And I knew I wanted to kind of structure the day in these 3 principles. So detachment, ultimately the practice of detachment is mindfulness and meditation. So here at the gathering, every day we started the day in what they call in Buddhism, noble silence. What does that mean? It means, you know, again, like the smartphone, I'm not forcing silence. I'm not getting angry if people break the silence, but it's inviting people to, rather than going straight into talking, rather than straight into worrying about if you're, you know, if you belong to the tribe, if you're good enough conversation, you know, you want to make sure that people think you're cool, right? It goes straight into that thinking, into that concepts of the mind. Rather than that, let's start the morning where we don't talk. Or if you do talk, it's just the essential things. And rather than giving our attention first to concepts, we give our attention to context. I.e., we're here in the woods. You might be able to hear the river in the background, the wind coming through the trees, the sunlight, dappled sunlight hitting the tarp, right? That's all the context, the actual physical happening. So the first hour of the day, I would either lead a guided meditation, if it was raining, then we're in here doing guided meditation, or we would just sit by the river and watch the bubbles. I've got a short in Fandabidozi about watching bubbles. Just watching bubbles down the river. So that's attention, right? ABC, the first root, the tree needs map, attention. So we start the day with attention, just paying attention. The B is breathing. So breathing is one of the main objects of attention. Right, it's the main handrail, you could say, for mindfulness meditation. Finally, circulation. Circulation can also be an object of focusing your attention. But for us, we were just doing light movement. About 15 to 20 minutes of just warming our body up, especially when you're camping. Right, you can be all stiff and cold. Just warming up our bodies, doing a bit of staff martial arts, some stick flows, some games, just to get ourselves warmed up. And finally, circulation. If people wanted, we went and had a dip in the cold stream. Great way to wake you up. Great way to get your heart rate going, open up your blood vessels. Oh, have a dip in the stream. And that seemed to be the natural break of noble silence when people came out of the stream. Yeah, which was a great. I think I'll keep that as an actual break for the noble silences after that dip. So yeah, so that's how we're starting our day. And then essentially, yeah, that's how we spent our mornings in detachment. Then late afternoon to mid-afternoon, we're in discipline. Now what does discipline mean? It comes from the word disciple. It just means, for me, focused effort in something. So for us, it was, on the first day we climbed a hill, talked about the land, reading the land, foraging plants and stuff like that. One of the lessons was basic fire skills. We did one on archery, Jason led a lesson on the Great Kilt, how to use a blanket for maintaining core body temperature and affecting shelter. So focused effort, whatever it was, lessons, right? We've woken ourselves up, we've woken up our attention. Now our lessons and the foundations, basic survival, basic human needs. And then late afternoon into the evening, it's play, right? Humans learn through play. It was free time for people to do whatever they want. We had one person making a bow. Jason was helping him make a bow. So that was playful, right? It's not a scheduled lesson, but it's just naturally happening. Some people would just go sit on the bench, stare at the mountain. Some people go for a swim or just talking, right? Just the chatting and stuff like that. And as I mentioned in the previous pondering, the final night we had a ceilidh, sharing music, sharing tunes, sharing stories, sharing poems. All the things that make life worth living as a human. So yeah, so we essentially spent 4 days doing this. And what I loved is, like, I live this rhythm on a good day, but let's face it, when I don't have other humans to hold me accountable to it, I'm just as guilty as everyone else, checking my smartphone too much, sleeping in, missing the workout, missing the light movement in the morning, skipping that cold dip, all these things that I know make me feel good, all these things that I know increase my well-being, increase my resilience. So it was fantastic to hold a space where we could actually all hold ourselves accountable and start to live in this rhythm. And yeah, we all agreed that by the last day, we all really felt like we had gotten this rhythm, right? We're all waking up at the same time. Even the people that found silence really uncomfortable, even some of them agreed that the silence was actually a beautiful way to start the day. And yeah, just finding a really lovely rhythm and just being humans, for goodness sake. Just cooking around the fire, talking to people without smartphones getting in the way, that's what it's all about. It's encouraging people to go away and essentially sow those seeds back into their families and communities, to make us all sane again, essentially. So the last day, we'd done this, this debrief, this circle where people had said, like, yeah, not having smartphone is actually one of the highlights. I'm kind of dreading going back. I'm addicted to scrolling through YouTube Shorts, or I'm addicted to Instagram, or I'm addicted to this and that. So what am I gonna do? And obviously it's hard to give exact protocols, but I thought, right, before we give people their smartphones back from the ammo box, maybe it's good to share a few things that I found helpful. So I thought I'd also share them here on this pondering video. So yeah, when I've been a bunch of times going out on wilderness trips where I've just switched my phone off, not checked it. And then, yeah, some handy things I found to come back to it. Now, first of all, you can get minimalist phone apps. Now there's quite a lot of options. You can make your phone really less addictive. So I've got the minimalist phone app, which just makes it really boring, right? This is black and white. There's no colorful apps. There's timers for things that are particularly addictive. I know Instagram is particularly addictive for me. You can put a timer on it and it just closes you down. Once the time is out, it closes you down. You can set up your phone like that. But here's a powerful one, really simple one that I quite like. And it's before I switch my phone on, before I take it off airplane mode. There's something about the screen. It is a rabbit hole in itself. And as soon as that's on, it's so easy for you just to go, oh, just get sucked in the millions of notifications and stuff like that. So before I switch it on, and intermittently as I'm using it, just flip it around and look at the back of the phone. As soon as you feel the screen is sucking you in, turn it around. And what do you realize? It's a rectangle. It's a hard plastic and metal and glass rectangle. Right? It'd be weird if, I don't know, someone was staring at a hammer or a spanner or a saw, right? These other tools that are useful in life. But there's something about this screen that we confuse for reality. We go, oh, I get sucked in. Turn it around. Oh, all right, it's just a rectangle. It's just a plastic, glass, and metal rectangle. So that's a really simple thing that I see quite a lot. Just flip it around. Other thing, since I take it off airplane mode, I know for the apps that I haven't turned off notifications, right, they appear at the top of the phone. Intentioned use, that's another thing. So you go through priorities, right? Your well-being, your attention is the first priority. So think of the things that you know are not good for your well-being, and you know that's definitely not going to be the first thing you check. Usually so that's first priority. Second priority for me is usually checking messages from loved ones, right? Check message from my wife, check message from family, whatever. It might be things like checking the weather or checking my calendar. These practical tools that are helpful for life. So before I go on my phone, it's like, right, I know what I need to do. All I need to do, say for example, like I did this this weekend, I was trying not to look at my phone. Obviously I had my phone because I'm the organizer, and for safety, if an accident happens, I need to have my phone on me. But I was trying not to check my phone, especially in front of other clients, or in front of the students, sorry. And, but I need to check the weather. I'm hosting this gathering. Of course I need to check the weather. So what I would do, because the notifications appear at the top of the phone, cover the top of the phone like this, so you can't see it. And I go like that, I go, right, okay, don't look at the top, weather app, what's happening, okay, it's raining a bit, and then we have a dry bit, right, I can run that session when it's dry, right. Cover up the bit where the notifications are, back in airplane mode, oh, put that down. Right, that's a handy technique. Cover up the notifications, and then, yeah, don't switch it on or take it off airplane mode until you know exactly what you're using it for. And that's a few other people talked about things. As I said, some folk, that was the first time they had been days without their phone, and they said actually it was easier than they expected. And my response was like, it's easy when you're not alone in doing it. And I was honest, it's like, look, if I'm in this woods by myself, a few years ago, you couldn't get any signal down here. It was glorious, but they've updated the phone masts and now I get signal. So of course, when I'm by myself, I'm human, right? We get lonely, or at least I think that's the motivation in it, and you just check your phone habitually, and it feels strange when you don't have it. But when you're with other people, and you're actually having undistracted conversations, like none of us, everyone agreed, none of us thought about phones. None of us like, oh man, I really want to check. I really want to check and see what's going on. I want to see my messages. I want to see what's going on Instagram. No one was like that because, you know, life is happening. Human, real life is happening right now. Now, I imagine if people did have their phones, and that's why I was so careful to creating a space. Say if we're sitting around the fire, if anyone had their phones in their pocket and they didn't have a barrier to that impulsive checking out the phone, getting lost, sucked in, right? We are hardwired to be able to know where other people are looking. It's a theory of why we have the whites of our eyes is so that we can, you can tell where other people are looking. It's hardwired in our social structure. So when people look at this shiny rectangle and you see that they are engaged, then you go, oh, maybe I should look at my shiny rectangle. And if there was no barrier, you take out your phone and then suddenly you're doing what it seems like the whole of society is doing at the moment. Walk into any cafe, go to the airport, bus station, no one's talking to each other. No one's saying, hey, look at that lovely cloud over there. Do you hear that river? Oh, look at that lovely bird. You know, what do you think about this? Do you think we should question the system? No one's doing that, right? They're scrolling or playing some rubbish game on their phone or something like that. But yeah, but when there's no temptation, you don't see other people being sucked in by their shiny rectangle, you don't even think about it, honestly. So we all agreed that people were going to go home and try and be the leader in whatever their friend circle, their family circle, and just try set up environments where this happens. You all have a safe box. You're like, right guys, what I'd really love to do, you know, I love everyone here. I love all my friends here, my family here. But what I feel is that, you know, our phones are getting away of genuine connection. And, you know, I crave genuine connection. I want to hear your folks' stories and thoughts without being distracted. So may I suggest that this evening, can we all put our phones in this box and do something else? And it's rather than watch a movie, can we, let's, I don't know, play a board game, make something, go for a walk together, anything tangible and non-screen related. So try it out. Try starting your day with ABC, attention, breathing, circulation. Try once in a while creating a barrier, even just a little barrier, a little bit of friction between compulsive phone checking. And then when you do need to come by it, yeah, try out those techniques. Flip it around. As soon as you get sucked into the screen, flip it around. It's just a plastic rectangle. So thanks for tuning in to this pondering, folks. As always, there's a link to Resilient Roots Survival School below. Well, you'll get access to all the online lessons, the curriculum. That was another thing we shared at the end of the thing. Is like, right, especially with Resilient Roots, it's ultimately right. The main curriculum is online, so we all talked about ways of how we can still use online things for things that are good for us. But of course, technology is there's still some communities online and things like that are still good for us. So maybe that's a subject for another pondering, is how to set up your phone, how to set up your devices so that you can get to the wholesome things on the internet. Because there are wholesome things on the internet, right? How can you set up your phone so that you go to places that are organizing, are discussing and encouraging a healthier way of life, rather than the social media platforms and the games that they're only designed for you to be addicted to. That's their only objective, to keep you on them, to harvest your most important human need, attention. So let me know in the comments if you got any thoughts on the subject, if you've got any other techniques on how to have a better relationship with your phone. And yeah, maybe in the future we will cover this topic on how we can access more wholesome communities online without getting caught into the more addictive ones. So yeah, come join us in the real live calls. Last Thursday of every month, we're doing these in Resilient Roots, and then we'll be doing gatherings here in the woodland at least once a year. If they're more popular, we can do them more often, but at least once a year we are gathering here, forming the resistance against the shiny rectangle zombies. Thanks for watching, folks. Catch you later.